Today we continue just where we left it off and to expound a little bit on the Mahayana scriptures. I chose a few, and most of all, the Prajnaparamita Sutra. So we talked about how our consciousness functions, how our being can relate to the universe, and there is a very important sutra which we call the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra is a very interesting set of scriptures because many people believe that it was not even taught by the Buddha. Some other people believe that it was taught about halfway, 15, 20 years through the Buddha's lifetime. Now, if you get the medicine which cures you from your sickness, does it matter who made it? Does it matter when it was made? Correct. It does not. So we put aside all historical and scientific debates about this because it's none of our concern. What our concern is what that does to our minds. And what happens is, when you read the Heart Sutra, at least for the first time when you read it, you do not understand anything. If you read other sutras, the Diamond Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, the Mahaparinibbana, you might understand a little bit. But with the Heart Sutra, it's constructed in such a way that as you read it, there are very few footholds for your intellect. So I'll just bring out one and the most important part, the very beginning. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when practicing the deepest transcendental wisdom, perceives that. This is the foundation. Everything else which comes after that is a very interesting set of negations. In Latin, it's called the via negativa, which means you eliminate all the unnecessary parts, and then what remains is what we really need. Okay? So the foundation is, in the state of practicing the deepest transcendental wisdom, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, or any practitioner, perceives. So what do we perceive? It says that all the 5 skandhas, or the building blocks of our ego, originally are empty, originally do not exist. That's the form, the body, feelings, perceptions, impulses, and forms of consciousness. None of them exist by themselves. None of them have control over our existence. None of them have control over our Buddha nature. That's actually a pretty strong statement, because if you say that your body, your form, or your feelings, or anything that you perceive, or any internal impulse, your willpower, or any form of consciousness does not have power over your Buddha nature, that means you are truly liberated. Okay? No more suffering, no more attachments, nothing whatsoever. And in fact, that's what the sutra says. Then we totally attain that form becomes emptiness, and emptiness becomes form. Any kind of content of the 5 skandhas, or the 5 building blocks, which I have mentioned, are totally removable and creatable. You can remove them, form becomes emptiness. You can create them, emptiness becomes form. And that's how we can truly perceive during meditation that that which is form is emptiness. That which is emptiness is form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, impulses, consciousness, the sutra says later. Okay? So any kind of body feeling, any kind of emotion, any kind of consciousness can become nothing and can appear out of nothing. Now, this is again very strange. That's not how we usually learn our world. But remember what I said before, the Albert Einstein type of physics, because if you're attached to the senses, then the only thing you get is what Isaac Newton taught. So the Newton physics and the Einstein physics, 2 very different types of things. Imagine that the 2 are put together. That's correct meditation practice. You see how the phenomenal world, the external world operates. You see how the mind operates. And then you can have correct view of any kind of phenomena in any place and at any time. Okay? That's why the Dharma is called in Sanskrit Sanatana Dharma, which means universal law. At any time, in any place, in the known universe, for humans, this Dharma works, without exception or without failure. And that depends on your cultivation, how deep you go into that. Okay? Again, this is a very kind of universal statement, but if you practice, you can attain that. So, as we move on with the sutra, it says that in this state of transcendental wisdom, there is no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Okay? Therefore, no sight, smell, taste, etc. So, in this state of transcendental wisdom, nothing appears and nothing disappears in your mind. That's when your don't know becomes strong and unobstructed and clear. Okay? Nothing appears, nothing disappears. Your mirror, clear mirror consciousness, becomes just as it is. In this mirror, there is no enlightenment and no suffering. It has no dualistic quality at all. Just return to what it really is. Return before thinking, return before appearance and disappearance. In that state, your mind does not make anything, does not want anything, does not check anything, does not hold onto anything, is not attached to anything. All these 5 poisons are missing. You are just what you really are. Okay? And then the next part of the sutra says that the bodhisattva, when depending on this prajna paramita, has no fear, because the bodhisattva has no hindrance. Now it's very interesting because hindrance appears, fear appears. So when you have some kind of fear, it means you have some hindrance. Some kind of obstruction, either in the body realm, or the feeling realm, or the consciousness realm, or impulses realm, or perceptions realm. Some fear, because some attachment, some duality still exists, and you haven't processed that. You haven't seen that. You haven't let go of that. Okay? And then the last part of the sutra says, the greatest, the most perfect, it's kind of the qualifier, is the gold on the robe. But we don't consider the gold so important, the last part so important. However, there's one interesting statement. This is true, not false. I always wondered, why does that have to be there? I mean, these days, you would really suspect that something's wrong if the person says, well, this is true, not false. So you have to understand the mind of the old, people. They really venerated this sutra. They really respected this kind of teaching. So they used the most transcendental, the most liberating, etc., and then they expressed what they really experienced about this. It's true, not false. And then there's a mantra. The mantra of prajna paramita, or transcendental wisdom, gate gate paragate parasamgate bodhisvaha. Well, if you look at it, it means go to the other shore, become Buddha. But if you just look at the words, especially if you're from Germany or England or America, so you speak some Indo-European language, you see that gate is gate. In Lithuanian, it's gatve. Okay? In German, it's gasse. Then in English, it's gate. And then it's just a gate. If you go through this gate, you become Buddha. Okay? Para samgate, go through. Para is through. Okay? Go through this gate, the gate itself, samgate. Okay? And bodhisattva, become Buddha. So it's just like, as I mentioned before, the Noble Eightfold Path, which begins with correct. Likewise, this mantra says just go through the gate, go through the gate, go through this very gate, become Buddha. What kind of gate is that? If you heard this child just crying a little bit outside, that gate opened because you had no thinking and you could perceive the sound of the world, the sound which is Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is working with, perceiving the sound. If you can perceive the sound, that means you don't have thinking. If you have no thinking, you're free. Okay? So the sutras, including this sutra, is only a means to an end. The mantras, and we could talk about mantra practice for another 2 or 3 occasions, the mantras are also a tool to take away your thinking, to return before thinking. So if people have very strong suffering because of their own thoughts or emotions, you can recite the mantra. This mantra, gate gate paragate parasamgate, is very good. Many people use it and they reduce their own suffering. So what is really a mantra or a mantra's job? And as I heard from another great teacher, a mantra essentially is the protection of your mind against your own harmful influence. Okay? So when you recite this mantra or any kind of mantra, then you don't let yourself harm yourself and this world and other people because of your bad thinking, bad emotions, which would cause downright opposites, suffering, conflict, etc. Okay? So that's the mantra's job. And talking about sutras is actually a very, very bad thing because it's not necessary. Already the sutras talk about some teaching which cannot be expressed in words and speech. So the sutras put that into words, and then talking about the sutras, even more words. So what's the use? And the answer is, it's food for you. You are interested, your intellect is curious, so many kinds of good food is necessary. One of them is the sutras. The other kind is a little bit talking about the sutras. Another kind is the mantra. So when you experience this many kinds of teaching, this many kinds of food, suddenly you realize where your stomach is. It's right here. Okay? Experiencing digestion so many times with so many kinds of food, then you really know, oh, that's how the body works. That's why so many traditions do so many kinds of jobs. But the point is always the same. Always the same. Become clear, help this world. Okay? Does anybody have any kind of question about anything that we have spoken so far, about mantras, about sutras?
Can you point out the difference between the don't know mind and avidya or ignorance?
Yeah, ignorance. Keep the mic with you, you might need it. So, if I want to explain to you, don't know mind means no thinking, no dualistic thinking. No dualistic thinking means 100% awareness in this moment. In Sanskrit, it's called vidya. Vidya, seeing. Okay? Buddha means awakened. So vidya, in Latin videre, to see, means you wake up and you see things as they are. So that's don't know. Next, what you ask is ignorance. Ignorance is, first of all, blindness, avidya, not seeing. And why don't we see? Because we have so many ideas and so many attachments that we don't see things as they are, but we believe our dualistic thinking. So do not think that ignorance is the lack of thoughts. In fact, it's the abundance of thoughts. It's the attachment to thoughts. And this ignorance is actually not seeing this thinking, not only having it, but not seeing it. And if you don't see it, this thinking controls you. And if this thinking controls you, then you believe that good and bad exist by themselves. That there is a good person and there is a bad person. okay? And then this ignorance creates desire and anger. Okay, that's the difference. More questions?
So what about punishment? In schools, we see teachers punishing students. Is that okay, or is it depends?
What is punishment?
Punishment, pain.
Then doctors also punish you.
I don't know, I guess.
You were at school. Then what makes you ask this question?
Why do I ask this question?
Yeah.
Because I know that as a teacher, I punish my students.
You are a teacher?
Yes.
And you punish your students?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Well, it's probably my insecurity of lacking with classroom management.
Do you teach also psychology?
No, I don't have a degree in that yet.
Sorry?
No,
Okay. So, if you let go of the psychological explanation, which is really a burden here, just throw it out. Look at it. Keep it. Why do you punish the student?
Why do I punish the student? I know that because of lack of sleep, that I'm not alert. I know that's part of the problem after I've done it, is that I punish the kids because of my own mistakes. So I realize that. And also because they're not listening, or I guess...
That's better. That's a little closer. So the kids are not listening, and they're not studying.
Or they're not just basically following instructions.
They're not disciplined, etc.
Right.
Yeah. So the actual purpose or the objective of punishment would be to make them study and to make them disciplined, etc. I mean, that's why teachers usually punish the student. Is that correct? There are many English teachers here.
Right.
And other teachers here. It's wonderful to see at least 60% teachers here. So it's a very important methodological question. I also taught English and Hungarian, and I had kids, in the classroom for 2-3 semesters. And I experienced total chaos in the classroom, okay? And I used a method which is really, really kind of frowned upon, but they couldn't deny that it worked. I go into the classroom, and the kids are there in total chaos. They just came from gymnastics, and they still didn't finish their boxing game, with each other, and shouting. Then I got the word, just take them out to some play field, and that will be okay. I said, I'm sorry, we have a lesson to give, and I'm not giving up on the curriculum, so we're going to have that lesson. And then I come in, and they say, oh, we know, we're going out. So everybody's shouting. I said, what did you say? More shouting. I said, what did you say? They shout on top of their lungs. And we went like this for about 5-10 minutes. And the kids were shouting on top of their lungs. And from the other classroom, the other teacher came over and said, is everything okay? I says, we're doing great. You can return to your own kids, okay? Then the kids, they finish shouting because one of them says, hey, he can't hear you because you're shouting so hard. So they were toning themselves down, okay? And I said, great, what do you guys want to do? He says, yeah, we heard we would go out, but you also said last time that we would have something interesting to learn. And then what is that? They actually wanted to hear what they would lose. And I say, well, we would talk about English dialogues in certain situations, and we can do it out in the playfield, if you like. Okay? So we went out to the playfield, and we had an English lesson together. Okay? That was also very, very interesting. And after this shouting game, I had zero discipline problem. Okay? So usually you want to keep everything in a very, very tight, little tinderbox. And you can call rightfully so insecurity. But this insecurity is conditioned into the teacher. And if the child stands up and walks to the window by himself and herself and opens and looks out, that's already breaking discipline. Say, hey, these guys are human, okay? They have their own little world. So if you can just flexibly incorporate their world into the lesson, then no problem. For instance, what would you do if a kid just stands up and looks out through the window, stays there for a minute, and just returns to his seat in the middle of your explanation? Because they are interested in their own things, and they talk to them, and they talk to each other endlessly. So what happens is, they're not interested in what you have to say. But if I am interested in what they have to say, I can put that into the lesson. And then soon the real thing appears, okay? So when we started speaking English at age 12, if I attached to the curriculum, then we would be bogged down with very, very beginning stuff, which is totally boring for them. And 12-year-olds, they're not stupid. They can get even very complex syntactic structures. So what happened, I listened in before beginning the lesson. And then it's clear they were talking about their own dreams to each other. So we began the lesson just talking about dreams. And they were doing material like intermediate instead of beginner, because they were interested in learning the structures which expresses in English the same thing as they dreamt last night, okay? So I don't mean to be only improvisative and only, follow them. But if you start to be flexible and a little bit incorporate their own world into your own curriculum, you can teach what you want to teach, okay? That's why, do not ever be stiff in the classroom. Do not ever want to punish them, because everybody hates punishment. Punishment is a mistake. Discipline is the right thing, but how you achieve discipline takes a lot of skill, okay? In Buddhism and Zen, which we're going to talk about next, week, what's really fantastic, and I always say it at the beginning of our 90-day retreats, what's fantastic is that everybody came here out of their own free will, stays here out of their own free will, and leave when they want to leave. That's the whole thing. Within that, there's meditation practice. Within that, there's discipline. We use discipline because we undertake discipline by ourselves. It's not imposed. Now, a kid does not understand that, but the kid understands function, and the kid understands relationship. So if you create the right situation, then the right relationship and the right function appears almost immediately. And there's one thing which I cannot, finish our series of Mahayana without, including the methodological discussion of any kind of lesson. If you don't love them, it's not working. You have to. Even if the kid wants to kill you, you love them, okay? It doesn't make you anybody else, just yourself, okay? That's the key. And when they feel that, love is the direct opposite of fear. Okay? When you're afraid, you're tied up inside, totally. So that nobody would harm me, nobody would harm the lesson, nobody would drop their pencil, That's how bad it can be. And when you have this great loving kindness, this great opening, you become a father to all of them for the duration of the lesson. Okay? They feel it, and they love you back. Okay? Even the worst, the most reckless, the most naughtiest, they love you back. Okay? So, that was the end of our Mahayana section. And then, again in 4 brief successions, we'll have the Zen bites, the Zen snacks of our teaching. So thank you very much for your attention.